Hey, it's Tristan here from ZebraInvest, and today I'm going to be running through a neat little video that hopefully should be able to help you along your way with SDLT. We're going to go through some tips, tricks, and methods that I've used to be able to save paying SDLT on refurbishments and projects down the line. I've been asked to do this video by a friend, Vadim. He heard me talking about a few little tips and tricks I've used on properties I've flipped. If you take a look through, you'll see a couple of walk rounds I've done over a property in Southampton at 68 South East Road. And on that property, we actually reclaimed our SDLT as the property wasn't inhabitable when we purchased it. We've also done other properties where we've used multiple dwellings relief, and basically buying properties where there's two properties in the same site, splitting the SDLT purchase price into two and then paying on a smaller amount rather than the higher price. So what I was going to do is jump in and run through a few little bits that I've done and things that might help you out. I haven't gone through and created slides for each of these, but I'll go through it. So, and number one, the simple one is going to be multiple dwellings relief. So multiple dwellings relief, the idea is here is whenever you're purchasing two or more properties, and what you can do is you take the whole purchase price of a property and divide it by the number of units appropriately to those units, so they'll be able to split down the purchase price. And the reason being is when you look at a whole building, you end up usually getting tiered rates of stamp duty. So as a property investor, we already pay an additional 3% to the base rate. But as it goes up and you go up the rating, the amount of stamp duty you're going to pay increases. So what happens is if you actually take that purchase price, say for example, you've got £1 million property that you're going to buy and it was 4 flats, actually that will then convert into 4 properties of 250,000. And in this case, you're going to end up paying, you can pay tax on the whole amount, or you can pay it on the smaller, lesser amount. And by doing that, it allows you to pay a less tax overall, because chances are on £1 million, you might end up paying, say, 100 grand worth of stamp duty, but on 4 transactions, £250,000, you might end up spending something like 50,000. And so there can be quite big savings by using that. But that's not the biggest tip or trick or hack. The next one is when you buy a property that's mixed use. So number 2, if you're buying a mixed use property, so that might be somewhere where it's got a shop downstairs. So that could be where you've got a shop downstairs, or you might have storage, or someone may have used, even like before, they may have been like fixing cars, they might have like an outhouse where they're doing a bit of woodwork and carpentry, but they're actually running their business from their home. Or if you're buying property where downstairs is, say, a shop and upstairs is flats, this is classed as a mixed-use investment. And at this point, you actually end up paying commercial stamp duty rather than residential stamp duty. And the rates that you're paying on it are far less, and that can make it far more affordable to purchase. So what you can do as well is you can mix this. So say, for example, you go off and you look at a property like that, you might find that they've been running their own hairdressing company on the side of it. There's one for sale in Norwich at the moment that is exactly doing this. And it means you can get that property through at a much lesser rate than you would have done before. The other times it can work, you mix that with multiple dwellings relief. So that when you've got a commercial property, you then split that property into 2. So say, for example, you're buying 42 and 44. They're actually 2 separate properties. And if they're mixed use, you can then split the whole purchase price, say in this case, £400,000, split that into 2. So you're now buying 2 properties at £200,000. And because they're mixed use, you're paying commercial stamp duty on it. So then you end up paying something around about £4,000 on that purchase price, rather than if you were using a standard residential SDL calculation, it might be something around about the £12,000 mark. So that's another neat way of being able to get around it. The next one is, I mentioned earlier about a property in Southampton. So it's number 3, that was uninhabitable. So what do I mean by that? In this property, there was no kitchen, there was no bathroom. The ceilings in places had fallen through, the windows were no longer in the property, we had woodworm, the whole thing had to go back to the brick, and you physically couldn't live in the property when you came to move into it. The gas hadn't been used in the property for years, and the electrics, we even found all the original lead wiring and boxing in the ceiling. So it was a really awful property that someone could live in. And so because of that, we were able to buy it, go back, claim that the property was uninhabitable, no one could live there. And because there's no longer uninhabitable, we managed to claim our SDLT back. And we used a company called Cornerstone who are absolute specialists in this. So that's number 3. A 4th way of doing it is if you've got a probate property. So if you're buying a deceased estate and you're a property trader, and by property trader that means and I'll go on to this one on the next video as well. Property trader is where you're buying a property with the intention of selling it. You never grant a lease, a tenancy agreement. No one ever moves into that property or lives there. It's simply used as a property that you're buying, refurbishing or selling, or you're just buying and selling. So back to it. The reason I was saying about it, and this is obviously point number 4 for it, is when you buy a property and you do it up and you intend to sell it and you buy it out probate, you're allowed to claim your SDLT back if your refurbishment costs less than £10,000. Double check this online, but you can find it elsewhere. And that way you can turn and say, look, if you're going to go in and you're going to redecorate the place, possibly put new carpets down, you might, rather than replace the kitchen, we've done this in one of our projects, we just painted all the kitchen up, put in some new appliances, and you can actually do quite a good job in refurbishing the place and adding value. Then you're allowed to claim the stamp duty back. And there's 2 ways you can do this. 1, you go to someone, like I said, like Cornerstone Tax, or 2, if you're using a commercially minded solicitor, they can actually file, when they put the transaction through, a certain SDLT transaction code. That will mean you won't pay that because you are buying it to company in terms of trade it. The company that you're buying it, and this will go the same to the next one, needs to be a property trading company. So you either need to prove that someone's not going to live in that property, they haven't lived in that property, or you can do that using your SIC code. So if you want to have a look at that online, if you go to Company's House, you can jump in and you can find Zebra Buyer Limited, and you can see our SIC code, which is statutory industry classification. Then you can be able to work out which code your company should be trading under. So that's one way. The next way, number 5, again goes for property traders only. Number 5 is going to be using where you're coming in and you're helping a chain. So say, for example, I'm buying, so at the top of the chain there is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Below Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who are just selling their house, you've then got Mr. Thompson and Mrs. Thompson, and they're buying their house. And then underneath that, you've got Tristan Gordon, and then underneath Tristan Gordon, because I'm, say, for example, moving out of my flat to their one, and then underneath that, we've got Derek, who's looking to buy a house at the bottom. If for some reason I can't buy, that whole chain falls apart and no one can complete on selling their property. But if you can step in and replace me, then you're actually, because you've come in and you've saved that chain, and technically you're saving quite a lot, or helping the country quite a lot of SDLT. So there's other people in those chain, each of those would have been paying as it goes along. You've come in, helped the chain. You can actually claim back your SDLT. And but that's only on a property where you're going to be able to, where you're going to be purchasing the property to sell it. And in that case, you can go in, you can refurbish it, and you can refurbish it to sell it, but no one can go in there, no one can live there, but the property needs to go straight in and go out. And again, a solicitor, when you're purchasing this, they can simply write in a SDLT code number 9, and that will remove your SDLT liability for it. If you've already bought a property before where you've fixed the chain, then it might be worth, again, as I've said, going to someone like Cornerstone. They'll be able to help you out. There's a few other bits that you can do for SDLT claims and getting it back, but most of these apply to bigger companies or where you're an employer and you're helping buy someone's house out. So those are probably my 5 best tips for getting SDLT and reclaims and saving a lot of money on it. So hopefully you find that useful. As before, I've mentioned in other videos, I am not an accountant, I'm not a solicitor. So if you want to go off, find other information, research this yourself, and put it into practice. But certainly it's information I've used and I am doing. Anyway, again, hope you liked this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. And if you've got any comments, please drop them in below. Have a lovely day. Bye.